Hello guys! So today we're gonna learn about the modal verbs. English modal verbs are auxiliary verbs used to complement or change the meaning of the main verbs in sentence. The modal verbs are very important to learn English because you can find it in many places, like for example, books, TV series, or a real English conversation. So the first modal verb that we have here is can, and we can use this modal verb in three ways, being the first one for permission, like for example, can I go to the museum? The another way to use this modal verb is for ability or skill, like for example, he can play guitar. The another way is for possibility, like for example, we can go to the movies. So now we are gonna watch this modal verb in a real English conversation in the TV series Friends. In this episode, Joey is upset with his friend Chandler because he doesn't want to break up with his girlfriend Janice. So let's see how Joey and Rachel use this modal verb in a real English conversation.
They're not breaking up. Chandler and Janice, they're not breaking up. He didn't blink or anything.
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, if you see them together, they're really cute.
Cute? This is Janice. You remember Janice?
Yes, Joey, I remember. She's annoying, but you know what? She's his girlfriend now. I mean, what can we do?
So how we could realize in this occasion, Joey and Rachel used the modal verb can for a possibility. What can we do? So the next modal verb that we have is very important and it's could. And we can use this modal verb in three ways, being the first one for permission, like for example, could I hug you? The another way is for ability or skill, like for example, she could not read when she was 5. The another way is for possibility, like for example, Jack could have been a singer. So let's see in Friends. In this episode, Mr. Heckles is not happy because according to him, Monica's apartment is having too noise. So let's see how he used the modal verb could in a conversation with Phoebes.
No, Mr. Heckles, no one is making any noise up here.
You're disturbing my oboe practice.
You don't play the oboe.
I could play the oboe.
Then I'm going to have to ask you to keep it down.
So how can we could realize Mr. Eccles used the modal verb could as an ability? I could play the oboe. Then we have should or ought to. And we can use this modal verb in three ways, being the first one an advice, like for example, you shouldn't open this door. The another way is for recommendation, like for example, we should practice it before the presentation. The another way is for a suggestion, like for example, you should tell your mother you're not going. So let's see it in a real English conversation. In this episode, they are worried because Phoebe is hanging out with a stalker. So let's see it in Friends.
Into that stuff anymore. He quit for me. Babes, this guy has been obsessed with your sister for God knows how long, okay? You don't just give up something like that.
Look, he gave me his night vision goggles and everything.
You're taking the word of a guy who has night vision goggles?
What? He's not still following her. You think he's still following her?
Phoebes, wake up and smell the restraining order.
What are you saying I should do?
So how we could realize Phoebe used this modal verb asking for a suggestion or an advice. What are you saying I should do? So let's go to the next modal verb. The next one is would. We can use would in two ways, being the first one for a request, like for example, would you help me do my homework? Or a desire, like for example, I would like to eat pizza now. So let's see this in a real English conversation. In this episode, Chandler is complaining to Joey because according to him, Joey stole his chair. Let's see it.
Well, Joey, I wrote a little song today. It's called Get Up.
All right, you can have the chair.
Really?
Oh my, would you look at that?
So, how we could realize Joey used the modal verb would for a request. Would you look at that? The next modal verb is must, and we can use this modal verb in three ways, being the first one, obligation. Like for example, we must go to work. The another way is prohibition, and we can see this in a negative way. Like for example, you mustn't tell it to anyone. The another way is deduction. Like for example, Laurel must be sick. I saw her at the hospital yesterday. So let's see this in a real English conversation. In this episode, Joe is upset because he missed his appointment with a director and Phoebe tries to help him. So let's see it in French.
The casting director told her I missed my chance.
Well, that is unfair. I'll call her. I'll tell her it was totally my fault.
Phoebe, you can't do that. The casting director doesn't talk to friends. She only talks to agents.
What a sad little life she must lead.
So how we could realize Phoebe used this modal verb like deduction. What a sad little life she must lead. Next modal verb is may, and you can use this modal verb in three ways, being the first one as a request. Like for example, may I go to the party with you? The other way is for possibility, like for example, it may be sunny on the weekend. The other way is for permission, like for example, may I drink some beer? So let's see that modal verb in a real English conversation. In this episode, Phoebe is singing Smelly Cat with her friends. So let's see how they use may in a real English conversation.
Smelly cat, what are they feeding you? Everybody! Smelly cat, it's not your fault. Monica!
They won't take you to the vet.
Chandler!
Obviously not their favorite pet.
Joey!
May not be a bed of roses.
So how can we could realize Joey used the modal verb may as a possibility? You may not be a bed of roses. The next modal verb is might, and you can use might for possibility, like for example, it might rain on the weekend. So let's see this in a real English conversation. In this episode, Joe and Rachel are having a conversation about a secret. So let's see this in French.
What? Hey, Joe, would you mind going over into Chandler's bedroom and getting that book back that he borrowed from me?
Now? You want me to go over there now? Do you know something?
Do you know something?
I might know something.
I might know something too.
So, like we could realize, Joey and Rachel used this modal verb for possibility. I might know something. So, the last modal verbs are shall and will. We can use shall for invitation or suggestion, like for example, shall we travel to São Paulo? Another way is for future action, like for example, I shall be there at 10 a.m. And will is used for future action, like for example, we will go to the United States next year. So that's it. Thank you very much.